Yes.
Okay, friends. So today's lesson or today's session is about the user experience and usability expert review steps. It's a part of a user experience series, which I am conducting, and this is the lecture number 5. It's about the heuristic evaluation. When you need the usability expert for review your application or software, and what it is, why we use it, and how to do this heuristic evaluation or the usability expert review. There are different ways of the software or the application evaluation. The first is empirical access with the real user. In this area or in this phase, we utilize real users, and they're bound to perform some activities or utilize the user, your software or application, and give you the list of issues. There's formal models and formulas to calculate the mayors. In this way, we are building a model and show it to user, and user tell us that whether and we evaluate the empathy, that whether we use it and whether our software is handling the problems rightly or not. But this way we can better predict what we should do and how we should do it. The third thing is automated software mayors. In the automated software mayors, uh, we use some simulations. In the simulations, we detect some the mobility bugs, and it's the best for the low level rather than the high level issues. And the last is critic expertise and the heuristic feedback. There's something which I'm going to tell you today that, in short, this area or this way of the software evaluation is where we involve some expert, and rather than losing our users or rather than making them frustration or made them in the frustration step, we involve some expert, and they create it and provide us the set of instruction based on some set of instructions, or based on their experience they provide some information. When to evaluate? When we use uh, these suggestions or critics, it's a before user testing. Why we use it before user testing? So we don't want, and no one want to waste their users before the design and redesign, so we can forecast that what will work and how it work. And when you know the problems but you need the evidence, that's area when we need the evaluation based on some evidence. And before the release, we want a smooth transition, a smooth outcome, and without any of the rough edges. So this is where we use these evaluations. Now, how to carry out? Now I have to tell that this is uh, these are the information series for the VectorInks, where we are going to provide you some valuable lessons, and where the designers, it's a community for the designers where they can sell their services, they can sell their products, purchase their products, and learn and get some lessons. So this is under development. So this is a series for the free lessons for under this batch. So how to carry out the usability expert review and why it matters. As I already mentioned, that there are different ways. Heuristic evaluation is one of the different software evaluation techniques. There are different types, like Jacob Nielsen's heuristic. It's conducted or formulated by the Jacob Nielsen. And there are Gerhard cognitive engineering principles, there is Wenschenk and Bach's classification, and there are many more. All of them are based on their own set of instructions where you can evaluate your software. My main focus is Jacob Nielsen's heuristics. A heuristic evaluation is a usability inspection method for the digital applications or the softwares that helps to identify the usability problems in the user interface designs. Heuristic evaluation is one of the most informal methods for the usability inspection in the field of human-computer interaction. Using heuristic evaluation prior to user testing will reduce the number of severity of the designers discovered by the users. So in short, you have some set of categorization and the list where you can see as a role models to test your applications inside your agency. So these are different 10 steps where you can conduct this usability expert review steps. And after these whole steps, you're ready to have your quick transition for the designs. I'm going to tell you in the details one by one that what it is. So heuristic evaluation is a visibility of the system status. The user should always be made aware of the system status at all times with efficient feedback and interactions. You can see several examples in front of your screen. Your system and your user should align and synchronize each other. You can see that your status bar or your system should tell your user or communicate with the user in terms of time and what it is. The time means that, for instance, if you are copy or pasting some data from one area to another area, your system should tell about the remaining time or what's the time it is. Or if you are conducting an event within your application, it must tell you about the calendar, about the time, about all of your time restraints. And then there is space. Space means that you can see that sometimes if you are into your Google Docs or your Dropbox, if you're using some number of amount of data, like GBs, it's 4 GB remaining or 5 GB remaining, so you can see that this is your system must relate the space with you. The third thing is the change. Your system must tell you about the change, that what is the amount of changing you're going to do it. And then there's the fourth amount is your action. What is your action is about, or action items must be very, very much clear. The next step, for instance, if you're looking at this screen, you see that this number 4 means the next action is your next page, or there's upload a file or a cancel. So these are the action items. The next step, where to go, the next or back, how many steps you have, your system must tell you. So these are your items for the visibility. The last thing is your completion, that you're done with your steps, so your system must tell you about your completion steps. The fifth part is match between system and the real world. The system communicate with user. It must be in the language, or it must be in the way which a user is familiar with. User can relate it with the real world. You can see that there are different metaphors, languages, categories, choices, and many more areas where your system should relate the user in the real world. What does it mean with the metaphors? There are several metaphors which were developed some 20 or 25 years back. For instance, there's a safe icon. Whenever you see this icon, the user tends to remember that what does it mean. The file icon, the folder icon, these are related to the real world. The desk icon, the exit icon, the cross, the ticks. So the user can relate these icons with some real things. The language, the system must speak some real world languages, like what they are speaking with one and each other. For instance, exit means they wanted to go out. Home means they have to redirect to the main page, the main area. The categories. Categories means your system data must be presented in a way of some categorization, like the visa website or the job website, where you can go and see the list of the countries. These are the categories, or the job categories, where a job website presents you that a designer job or a niche-based job or a location-based job. So these are the categories listing. The choices, you have a very matchable choices with the real world. If you are gonna approve or reject for some HR system, so these are approve and reject are the choices based on the real world. In this example of the screen where Amazon wireframe is displaying, you can see that in the real world, in the shop, you can see that the shop page, and in the shopping cart, they're normally the shop pages. Inside the shop, you see the different products categorized in some way. So in the shopping cart, you see the product categories and then the products, then the product details. Then you explore the products. In real world, you select the items and put it into the basket. In the website, you select the product and send it to the basket or in your cart. And then there's a checkout. So this is a real-time phenomenon, real-time experience which your system is matching. If there is nothing is matching, your heuristic should point some alert that it's not in the real world. User control and the freedom. Your users should have the control to revert back their actions or all kind of controls they must have. Assume if you have a system and there is a no back button, they cannot go back. Or I remember there was one system, there was a pop-up there, and they said me that if you want, you cannot do this particular action, okay or cancel. Now, what does the mean of okay? When I click on the okay, I came back to the same page. When I click into the cancel, it again leads me to the same page, which clearly means that there's nothing a difference between okay or cancel. So what am I doing? It's kind of frustration for me. So I should have a control as a user to revert back my action. If I'm doing something wrong or did something wrong, I can do Control C. I can toggle it, or I can use undo or redo. So these are the areas where your system should provide your users as a control. If your user will think controlless, they will immediately left your software or application. And there is a fourth part, it's consistency and standard. What does this mean? The system must follow some interface standards, some interface conventions. The user are familiar with the terminologies all over the system. You see in this page, if you are writing some logout or the sign off, what does it mean? In one page, you see the log off, log out, and in second page, it's a sign off. It means your system is not providing some consistency. There's a heuristic problem here. So your layout must be consistent, your names must be consistent, your choices should be consistent. It should not be like save, cancel, and save, abort. So the naming convention should be same throughout your application. That's consistency you need. The user can memorize their actions or steps. Help user to recognize, diagnose, and recover from the errors. The system must help the user in recovery from errors. The error message should be constructed with empathy. For instance, if you are doing this sign in username and password and access denied, there's no empathy in it. And in the second example, you see there is a username, sorry, your password or email does not seem right. So there is an empathy in this message. There's no empathy in this message. And although a system is trying to say the same thing. So your constructive warning messages, error messages, or any other messages, it should be recognizable and help them to understand them and provide some empathy messages that how they can recover from their errors. Is there any step? The error prevention. Humans are bound to make the errors, and the system should support the errors in eliminating them. For instance, the Google recommendation. You see, there is an example of Google search, and if you're writing something with a misspelling, the system should provide them the suggestions of correct spellings. So your system might have some information that, are you looking for this? Are you looking for this? Or you might be interested in this. So these are not only the business choices, it's error prevention choices that maybe user is trying to looking for something else and they are not gonna find them out. So your system must provide them. So the choices or the accurate choices based on artificial intelligence, based on some other areas where they can relate things. And then there are another heuristic is recognition rather than recall. The user assistance must be provided by the system to reduce the user's memory load. And what does this mean? The system helps the user in categories. They categorize their favorites or most used items. And what does it means? Their categorization are maybe based on most usable choices. An example for this is if you open that Google page, or if you open some menu and the submenu list is too much long, so it can be automatically drilled down in a bit of most usable action items. The others might be hide, and they can easily utilize them to recover them back. Or if you can see in your example, these are the total menu, and these are the frequently used menus which they are using many more time. Another example is your browser. You see there is the most open page. So you have the history of the browser. There are thousands of pages you are viewing, but the most open documents, or the most clicked documents, can be filtered and provided to you in the front of your main layout. The same thing happened to your Facebook. Before going to page number 8, I'm going to ask you if you're hearing me clearly.
Yes.
And is there any question you guys have? Okay, let me go to that heuristic evaluation number 8. There's a flexibility and efficiency of use. Does your system having enough flexibility or the efficiency of use? The system must prove the efficient for both noise and experienced user. Accelerators, shortcut commands for the experienced, and obvious alternate for the noise users. What does that mean? If I'm working as an expert user in some system, I know that where to go to arrange the stuff better. I have to go to this. If in this example, I have to go to this edit tab and go to utilize this arrange icon or align icon, action item. And there are further items, undo, redo, copy. If these are the most reusable items, and I have to use to identify this, to make this layout or something inside this layout, it can be utilized in some sort of icons. When you click here, then you can show these icons here. There is an example of Gmail or Google Docs when you utilize your mail. When you select an email, the top action items change. When you unselect your email, the action items will be changed because it will be happen on your account settings. When you inside the email, it will be inside the emails. When you're listing page, it's based on one. If you select one action items, the icons are changed. If you select multiple icons, the actions tends to be meant for the multiple action email selection. So your action items must be efficient and flexible for novice users and experienced users both. So the system should match the efficiency. The ninth heuristic evaluation is about the aesthetic and the minimalistic designs. The minimalist designs where you can see your data very well, precise manner, and you can see the action items very clearly, and you tend to do what you wanted to do, or you want your user to do. It's user should be presented only with the relevant data. You might have too much data to show, but the relevant data more easy is for the system and require user focus. If any of your screen or the system, software, or application screen having a cluttered data or too much data, it simply means that it's not best heuristic. It's violation. It's a violation of the heuristic, and your user might be leave from your application based on this aspect. Number 10, it's help and documentation. Most of the applications and softwares or the product owners, while developing their application, they forget or might leave it intentionally or unintentionally that help and documentation, it's a most important fact which must be used. Users should be provided with the appropriate help documents, both online and offline, about the system. The documentation must deliver effective steps for the users to accomplish their goals. If I'm gonna purchase my Canon 60 cam, or I'm gonna purchase some iPhone, and I have some question about it, I have a few ways. Number one, contact some expert, someone in this who already have used this application, software, or hardware. And the second option is I have to contact the vendor And the third option is if I have some help document, I can see this option that how to do it and where the option is. So these are the areas how we support our users based on the help documentation. Okay, so the next one is the cognitive walkthrough. It's a normal series of uh, action. The cognitive walkthrough is very important. It's a formalized way of imagining people's thoughts and actions when they use an interface for the first time. Walkthroughs identify problems that the new users will have when they first use an interface. I remember that first time when I used the email services. It was yahoo.com, and I was very much unaware of what does compose mean, and if I select an email, what does forward means, what does reply means, what does reply to all means. So a walkthrough of the application nowadays, if you see any trendy application, they understand that it's a sign up occur. The user first time signed in, then they provide you a walkthrough. That is called the cognitive walkthrough, where you provide what to do and what you might have the problem to identify the system, and they provide you some steps, action items, like where to do what. The elements, those are the four questions to ask in a cognitive walkthrough. Question number one is, will the user realistically be trying to do this action? For instance, if you have a very you are providing that Facebook, share to Facebook, share to Twitter, share to LinkedIn, Pinterest, the four action items, and if you are providing each action item one by one in your cognitive walkthrough, so it's really realistic that user trying to do this action. So the most important or real factor is you can bound or group them, that social sharing, and make it one cognitive walkthrough that share to the social networks, and that's it. And what is its priority? That's your question. The next question. Question number two is the control for the action visible? Uh, if you're if you want to if you want to get subscribers and people are not visibly or visually identify where the action item is or call to action, where the call to action is, it means it's failed into your cognitive walkthrough. Your actionable item is not visible. Is there a strong link between the control and action? If there is not efficient strong link between your control and your actions, it means that that you might see a user's distraction, or you can lose their focus. For instance, there is a, like I provided an example of the email newsletter. If you want user subscribers and there is a section in the website for the email newsletter, the call to action must be inside that block. If it's out of that block, user can relate it that it's call to action of some other element. So it must be clear that there is a strong link between control and your action. Is feedback appropriate? This question helps you find the problem when feedback is missing or easy to miss. Your system must provide that feedback somewhere prominent, because it's necessary to understand the real-time users' issues, and you will get these issues based on very proper way. The cognitive walkthrough in practice. So you can see the two examples. Now, the cognitive walkthrough, before you can start the cognitive walkthrough, you need a complete written list of actions needed to complete the task. So that's what you need. There's a practical activity, do a cognitive walkthrough. I suggest whoever listening this video, or who will listen afterwards after this live session, they must use this practical activity. You see some system, think some system, or if you're already a product owner, then consider your system, or you're working for some client, consider their system, and make a cognitive walkthrough for them. And try it yourself that all of the previous four questions are involved in this cognitive walkthrough, yes or no. There's one example that there's task, login customer. What is action? It's a select icon, existing or a new customer. What we want from this action items, is it visible, yes or no? Does the language match? Is this sufficient or appropriate feedback or other comments? So these are the action items you can see, and these are the cognitive walkthrough where you can understand. There is another example of cognitive walkthrough of an application. You see there is a wireframe and an interface. A user can search a restaurant, so choose or tap a restaurant. There are different restaurants that are clearly visible. And then there is another option with search food, pickup time, when to pick, and what are the live areas, and map, list, history, say. So these are the three different screens for me. What I tend to choose is based on my cognitive actions. These are the items which I will choose because I have a more flexibility and the more cognitive steps where to use them. Uh, there is one real-time example which I have done for a cognitive walkthrough for one of my customer in past, and you can see that there is a unique identifier which we identified as a page. There is or a module. It's a module number. There is a unique screen ID. There are different screens in one module. Category, the problem description, the severity, high or not, the frequency, how much time it is usable, and the proposed solution. What is the solution for? So it's a result. You can utilize Google Drive. You can utilize Excel file. You can utilize any of the software. Right, I'm using this Miro software, which was previously real-time board. So any of the software you can use it to list down your cognitive walkthrough practice and see what's wrong in this usability. The last for this heuristic evaluation result, how to provide the result. Presenting results from an expert review, let's face it, nobody likes being told their baby is bad. So this is the most challenging part where you have to be struggle as a usability expert. You see, these are the two designs. One is for KUIU. They have a mega menu, and you see that this mega menu is very much compressed. It's an e-commerce website, and they provide a different options, and it's a good option. They have the categories very much clearly written down, and they have a shop by product, their action items, shop by category, by collection, by get, and then there's a module of the picture and the elements. But if you compare it with another website, and you see they have the mega menu as well, but they have reduced down the text. It's by product line, by weight. It has more information than the previous one, but it has a clear gaps. It has a clear paddings, clear margins. Everything is very much clear where you can see it. So if you are comparing two things, if I'm saying to this company that your design is bad based on these facts, so it's hard to tell them. So because like I said, that no one wanna listen this thing that their baby is bad. So the three factors to consider when defining severity: frequency with which the problem occurs, is it common or rare? Impact of the problem, if it occurs, will it be easy or difficult for the user to overcome? The persistence of the problem, is it a one-time problem the user overcome once they know about it, or will the user repeatedly bother that problem? Remember the last example which I shown to you. You see, here I had provided the product problem description. I had provided a list down the severity, and list down the frequency, and the proposed solution as well. So you must have this thing written, that what is the problem, what's frequency, what's its impact, and what's the persistence. So how to tell that the baby is ugly? You're going to get the designers or the developers. Remember one thing, as a user experience or as a user UX expert, neither you are a developer nor you are a designer. You are relating to yourself or you're synchronizing with the user experience. So when you have to talk with designers, they might get threatened. When you have to talk with the developers, they will for sure get threatened. So you are going to get them tell that this is not going to work for the users based on these factors. So this will be justified that why something that did was correct and will work. Again, We're not trying to make personal attacks on the designs. We are just looking at the usability of the tasks to be performed in the interface, whoever done that interface. So we have to identify the usability issues, not hampering on the design sale. Uh, if you have any queries, you may ask. It's a time for the questions.
We have also one question.
And I am unable to see the question. Let me click. Is heuristic evaluation is a part of design thinking? Yes, of course. What does design thinking means? It's a complete set of procedures. How you have to evaluate your development, how do you evaluate your product based on the design thinking approach. So you have to see that heuristic evaluation is the evaluation of your product based on the usability prospect. So this is very much part of the design thinking. It's basically more than user testing. It's basically because in the user testing there's a set of areas, that there's a set of procedures, and that their actual users might be involved. But in the design thinking, heuristic evaluation, you get some data from some experts based on their experience and based on their real time scenario. So it's a part of design thinking. I hope I had answered the question. If there is any other question. How many times does this evaluation be done before product launch? You have to go through this presentation for this. As I had mentioned that there's it's before user testing, it's before design or redesign, it's when you know the problem is there, but you need some evidence, and it's before the release. So now the question is, if you're how frequent you are releasing your application or your software. If you are releasing at once based on the waterfall model, it means it's one time. But if you are real time working in today's scenarios based on agiles or scrums, so for every sprint, for every release, you have to evaluate it based on the heuristic evaluation. So for instance, if your application software having a 5 sprints or 7 deliverable items, so the answer would be it might be 7 before user testing, before design or redesign. So it might be, if there are 8 sprints, so it might be 16, once before the design and once before the release. That's the answer to this question. That's it. So no other question. Okay, guys. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll back for more videos from the VectorInks, and we'll guide you on the user experience, on the freelancing, on the business, on the management, and other aspects. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.